welcome to another episode of Jack's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I thought I would update you on what's going on with my reading in the past 24 hours, because I think the last video update I made was yesterday, so it's only been 24 hours. But I was gonna wait, but I'll be right back. Sorry, I decided this time I actually made sure to take some notes on what I read. So yesterday I finally finished Circe by Madeline Miller. So now I gotta read Song of Achilles, but I gotta buy it first before I read it. So and actually I do need to break some money into smaller bills, and so I might be doing a book purchase soon. But anyway, so I really enjoyed this book. I loved reading about Circe, the witch from the Odyssey, and one of the things I liked about this book is, personally, I've always been apprehensive about antiquity fiction because it's kind of written like it's written as a poem, in a poem format. And it was written a long time ago, so the writing style is very different to today's books. So I feel like I would really struggle with reading that and comprehending it. But what's great about Madeline Miller's work is that she tells the story of those stories, but in a format that's easy and accessible to read. And she also, this particular book talks about a character who's in the Odyssey, I think it's the Odyssey, very little, but she expands their story, and we learn more about this character. And the fact that it's a woman is even better, because these stories always, talk about male characters, and women are seen as, and women are often portrayed as villainous. Like, Circe is a witch, so she's seen as a villain in I forgot his name, in Odysseus's passing in Odysseus's life. Because, he, if you know the story, he lands on her island, and he stays with her for, a year, I want to say. And they have a bit of an affair, and, he's abandoned his son and his wife, and then I think he gets Circe pregnant. She turns men into pigs, so she's seen as very, I think a lot in the original story she's kind of painted as a villain, but this one, in the story, she's painted more as just as innocent and as naive as Odysseus himself, and just as fascinating as just as naive and innocent, but also just as fascinating character as Odysseus. And some of the, let's see, and I feel like that Circe is, despite the fact that she's a goddess, a nymph, I think, to be more specific, and she's a witch, she's also, despite that, she's still relatable in her desires and her feelings and her emotions. She just wants to be accepted and loved by her biological family, who, they're gods, so they're gods and goddesses, so they don't give a rat's ass. They're just gonna live forever, and they have all this power, so they mock her for her love for mortals, because, they don't care about us mortals. We'll be gone in 100 years, or not even that. So they just don't care, but we're small and meek and timid compared to them. And we don't have powers, unless, with exception of the lucky few who would be gifted, and they find her passion for mortals just silly and ridiculous, and she cowers before her father, and she's very meek and timid, when she she meets this human guy, this mortal that she develops feelings for, and that goes with her wanting to be loved and accepted. But then she finds a way to make him an immortal, a god, and thinking that, ooh, this will be a blessing. He'll be so grateful that he'll want to marry her. And of course he doesn't. He chooses another more beautiful nymph whom she turns into a sea monster. And then, out of guilt, she tries to confess to her father what she did, but her father just dismisses it and is like, who cares? And, is all like, oh, it was meant to be. It was the fates chose that for them. You didn't do anything. And when she tries to explain that, yes, I did. It was me who wanted this, who did this, he just gets really mad and puts his wrath upon her, and then she cowers in front, and is like, I'm so sorry to defy you, and then, of course, not that long after, they find out she's a witch, and she's cast to the island of Aiea. I don't remember how to pronounce it. I heard how to pronounce the island's name, but I can't remember what it was. That's how she ends up on the island I can't stand her family. Even those that seem to be, like, on her side and her allies in the beginning, you realize that they're also assholes to, like, Hermes, who she ends up takes on as a lover when she's on the island. But at that point, she has come to realize that, yeah, she can't trust anybody, any of the people that she considers part of her family. And she thinks that Aetes, her brother, who is also like her, is a witch like she is, that he's on her side. But then she finds out from her sister, Thespe, the woman who birthed the Minotaur, that no, he's not on her side. So she's been abandoned and by everyone she thought she loved her and accepted her and were her allies and friends. I apologize for the dog. Like, as I've said in past videos, my window's right here so they can see out. So he will do. So I'm sorry that he keeps doing that in my videos. What else? So her family really sucks. I can't stand them. They're assholes. I also really love the writing style. I love that it's written like a folktale. And like I said, it makes it a lot more accessible because I don't think I could ever really read the actual antiquity fiction because of the way it's written. But this is written in a way that is just more modern, a more modern writing style. It's easy to read, easy to follow. You don't have to concentrate too much. My only criticism, the only thing that bothers me is that the chapters were kind of long. I come to realize that, when I do those tags with whenever people ask the question of do you prefer long chapters or short chapters, I answer that I have nothing wrong. I have no problem with long chapters. But truth is, I think I prefer short chapters, especially if it's a book that it's not exciting and thrilling throughout the whole book. Now, I don't mean like thrillers type of thrilling, but like I'm a big fantasy reader, and of course this is fantasy, but this is also very much I feel like it's very much a character story, like a character study of Circe, which is not a bad thing. I still really enjoyed it and I breezed through it, but it was not like I couldn't stop reading. I could take a break from reading it. So that in like books, there are a lot of books that, I love and enjoy, and if the chapters are too long, or if it's a really long book, then I have to take breaks in between. But that does not mean I'm not in love with the book, it just means, I need to take a breather. What else can I say? I also, kind of like her relationship with Odysseus' son. She meets his son, And it's funny, I think she connects more to him than her own son, which I feel like that's not a spoiler, especially if you read the original story, not this one, but the original Odyssey. Then I believe there's, that eventually Circe has Odysseus' as a child. I think that's what they were saying when I watched, when I listened to That's Ancient History podcast by Jean from Bookish Thoughts. I think she talked about that in the original story, that that part wasn't made up. That actually happened in the original Odyssey story, or another story that was connected to it. I don't know. I've never read this kind of stuff, so I'm not 100% on what is accurate and what isn't. I'm just going by also the podcast that I listened to, where Jean from Bookish Thoughts interviewed Madeline Miller. Which, by the way, I definitely think if you love this book, you should check the podcast out. It was very interesting and very entertaining. But yeah, it's funny that she connected with him a lot more than she connected with her own son. Like, her own son was a lot more like Odysseus was. And forgive me, I don't know all the correct pronunciations. I don't know them all, but Telemachus, I don't know how to say it, but I like how she was very close with him, and she formed a bond, and he even goes with her on when she leaves the island, when she's finally, after she's finally got let out of her punishment, her isolation, he goes with her and helps her defeat I can't say her name either. Like I said, I apologize. Some of these names I cannot figure out how to pronounce them. And she's also seems like she tries. So another thing that I think mothers can relate to is holding on to your child and wanting to protect them, but then not being able to let them go. I think that Circe struggled a lot with that, but while Penelope, Odysseus' wife, I feel like, not that she doesn't love her son, but she's more willing to let him go and move on and live his life. She's more accepting of her son, while Circe struggles with letting go of her son. And it's understandable why she struggles with it, because Athena has threatened to take him away from her, and she's alone on this island, and he's her only salvation until she finally stands up to her father. So it's understandable that she feels that she can't let him go and wants to keep him with her forever. The problem is, parents eventually do have to let their children go, and this is the dog. The dog that's barking, the one whose tail you just saw. At least I really like Circe's character growth, how she goes from very obedient, meek, and timid to a much more stronger young woman who is not afraid to stand up for herself and accepts who she is and is content with her life. And accepts that her biological family or family will never love her and never accept her. And that she just needs to be okay with that. And she becomes a stronger character by the end of the story. Like I said, I didn't like how the chapter lengths, but it was still very steady pacing. And I don't know what else to say. I don't have anything else to say about this book. So I really enjoyed it, and I definitely want to read Song of Achilles as well. Okay, so the next book that I've been reading, while I was finishing up that one, is The Paying Guest by Sarah Waters. This, a lot of booktubers that I really like have talked about Sarah Waters quite a bit and how much they love her and her writing style. I just found another booktuber that I really like, something literate, possibly literate. Possibly Literate, I think is her name. I don't remember her actual name, but that's her channel name. I was told about her through Sam from Thoughts on Tomes, or she mentioned her in one of her videos. So, and she said she was very similar to her. So I went to Possibly Literate's channel and started watching her, and I really like watching her. And I found out yesterday that she also is a fan of Sarah Waters and started reading her books. I don't know which one, I can't remember which one she started with, but like I said, I talked about this in other videos. This is a book set in the 1920s, and I love the 1920s. It's one of my favorite decades in history. In like the suburbs of England, and it's about this mother and daughter, Frances and her mother, and her brothers and father died, and I don't remember how her father died. I think it was regular sickness, old age, or something. But her brothers died in World War I. So it's her and her mother, and they've come to realize that they don't have enough money. They're running low on money, so they take on tenants, and they take on the Barbers, a young couple, like a few years younger than Frances. And right away, Frances forms a bit of relationship with Miss Barber, Lillian, but that relationship blossoms into romance. So this is LGBTQ, has LGBTQ representation. I have heard that I think that all of Sarah Waters' books are about homosexual relationships. But now, unfortunately, this is in this time period in the 1920s. Being gay is not exactly acceptable. I mean, it's even worse than today. I mean, today people are still weird about, or still not comfortable with it, and still aren't as accepting as it. But it was even worse back then. And on top of that, of course, Lillian is married to a man. So So not only is it the fact that people will frown upon the fact that it's a relationship, she's in love with a woman. Frances is a woman in love with a woman. But she's also having the woman is married. So it's this, and so this, I really am enjoying this book. I really like Sarah Waters' writing style. It's so beautiful, and you definitely can really picture. It's very flowery, but still, my favorite type of writing style to get into is somewhere where it's somewhere between like flowery and, straight to the point. Like, kind of like somewhere between Lord of the Rings and a YA novel. That's the best I can think of. And so far, most books are like that now. Most modern books. But I also like I like reading classics, which are a little more challenging in the writing. But, so far, the affair has already begun between Lillian and Frances, and they're trying to hide it and be discreet about it, but it's getting rather challenging because eventually Frances's mother and Mr. Barber, Leonard do come home, and, so they have a hard time finding a chance to be alone together and actually make love and have little sexual fun. And then and in fact, when Frances tells her ex-girlfriend, whom she is still friends with, about it, how happy she is, because now Christina has moved on herself and has someone else, but she is a little apprehensive about this. Not because, like, Lillian, she's having an affair and essentially Lillian is a married woman, but also I think she's a little resentful because when they had their love affair, they got caught, and I guess Frances, in her eyes, didn't fight enough for them. So I think Christina is a little hurt by Frances and how now she's moved on and has someone new. So that's, and now it's made Frances kind of question their relationship a little bit. She's starting to be hesitant about it. So I'm starting to think that maybe Lillian is not so innocent. And so far I thought Len was an abusive husband and kind of a jerk. And he gets, like, when there was a scene where they're playing Chutes and Ladders, and, they decide, Lillian and Len decide to add things to the game, where well, if you don't know what Chutes and Ladders is, it's basically a game, a kid's game where you, like, roll the dice, and you have to either go up the ladder or down the chute. Basically that's the game. Well, the two of them have added to that game, and they will put, like, things like at the end of a ladder or a chute, they'll have musical notes, and if you land on that, you have to sing something. But then they also added a heart. And if you land on that one, Lillian, not him, not the other, if anyone else joined them, they don't either. Not Leonard, not anyone else, but Lillian herself, if they land on her, she has to take off an article of clothing. And if she only takes off, like, a bracelet or something, or a shoe or something, then he considers it cheating. She has to take off an actual article of clothing, like a stocking, or, like, her bra or something. And like I said, only she has to do it. No one else, no other player has to do that. Only she has to do it. And that's when I was already starting to dislike him, but that scene, it really pissed me off, and that's when I stopped liking Leonard. But now I'm starting to have my suspicions. I don't know why. I don't have anything that I can really pinpoint to why I'm feeling this way. But, after the scene where Frances is talking to Christina, and, the scenes when Frances and Lillian are getting ready to have another moment together, I started thinking, what if Lillian is kind of a villain in this story? What if she's not so innocent? Or, like what if she's manipulative? Both of them could be. Both of them could be. Not Frances and Lillian, but Lillian and Leonard. Both could be, very toxic. A very toxic couple. It could be that, because, Lillian, and maybe it stems from the fact that Lillian, there have been moments where Lillian, when Frances was talking to Lillian afterwards, after the night of them playing Chutes and Ladders, and just talking to her when they start conducting their affair, Lillian does admit that she's a lot tougher than she looks, and she has made it clear that Len cannot take advantage of her. So I'm not so sure. I'm not sure who's the bad guy in this, or maybe they're both bad guys, or maybe, granted, I think this is not like this isn't one of those, like, a fantasy story where there's a true bad guy and a true good guy. That's what's interesting about, like, stories that take place in the real world. There's no straight bad guy or good guy, unless you're reading, like, a detective story or something, where there is a villain. It's a lot more complicated than that in stories that takes place in the real world. That everybody has a dark side. And, not everybody's truly good or truly evil. I think that's why I like A Song of Ice and Fire series. Because it's really about a story about people. A lot of really shitty people. But still, they also have their good moments where they seem like decent human beings. So I'm definitely really enjoying this. And I'm going to continue. I don't know if I'm going to do that thing where I, wait a little while before I read another book by her, or I might just jump into another book. Most of the time, I usually wait a little while before I jump into the author's next work, but that's also partly because I don't always have their next work on hand. But I might go ahead and maybe start reading Tipping the Velvet when I'm done with this. But I did do my summer TBR video where I talk about all the books I want to read, and unfortunately, because there were so many books, it turned into a 3-part video. So there's a lot, and Tipping the Velvet, was not actually on that list of really long books. So I don't know, but I'm definitely really enjoying this. I cannot wait to find out what happens, and if it's going to end happy, although I don't know how this could end happy, because I can see it ending very bittersweet, but not happy. Not like a fairy tale happily ever after ending. Because even if, like, someone like Leonard dies or something, or like she gets back together with Christina or something, it's still gonna be very bittersweet because someone's gonna get their heart broken. Any book where characters are having affairs with someone else, when characters are having an affair, it usually does not end happy. So but I'm definitely enjoying that book. Now, I mean, not that I'm condoning the fact that they're having an affair, but in those kind of stories, it's like those of you who watch the show Scandal. I don't know if any of my subscribers watch Scandal, but that show was part of the plot of that show is, the main character's having an affair with the president of the United States. So, and my mom was saying how she kind of roots for that couple, even though it's morally wrong for them to be doing that. You still sometimes, or the same thing on Grey's Anatomy. If any of you watch Grey's Anatomy, it's kind of the same thing. I happen to, because my mom watches that show. I never watch Scandal, but, my mom talks about it. Sometimes I'll watch a little bit if I come downstairs when my mom's watching it. Like, if I come into the room or something, then it might catch my eye for, like, a few minutes. And then I went through a phase where I watched, like, Grey's Anatomy for a little while, and I liked it at the time, but now I'm like, it just makes me roll. Those shows like that just make me roll my eyes. But either way, I feel like in those shows, even if someone is doing something morally bad, if it's, the main character or your favorite character, part of you kind of cheers them on, even if it's wrong. So, today I read the first 3 chapters, I think it was 3 chapters of Hunted by Megan Spooner. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This was a book that one of my favorite booktubers, Murphy Napier, talks about. It's one of her favorite books, and I do think there's a sequel to this one. This is one of the ones I mentioned in my summer TBR videos. So far, this one seems to be a lot closer to the original fairy tale with the plot. Like, you have the merchant father they're a very rich family, but then they lose everything, and they're forced to live a very poor life. And that's kind of what happens in both the story and in the original fairy tale. Although it seems like the sisters are a little bit nicer than in the original fairy tale, but then that's a fairy tale. So, everything's black and white in those kind of stories. So I'm really liking it. And I can't wait to read more of it. I can't really say much because, well, except for the fact that I'm liking it. Because I haven't read a lot. So, but I just decided to go start that because it won't take me as long, hopefully, as the paying guest will. Like I said, I'm trying to get past and get to at least like 6 or 7 books. But as I say, every time I say that, I am well aware that it's not about quantity, it's about quality of what you're reading. But sometimes it would be nice to be able to say, hey, I accomplished this and read more than 7 books. But I don't know if that will happen. And I'm not that obsessed with trying to meet that goal and read more than 7 books. But it would be but like I said, I admit it would be nice to be able to, say that. Because I do get a little envious at those people. But I also know that the reason why I can't get past 7 books or like 4 to 7 books is because I also, I'm watching YouTube videos or watching other videos, going on Facebook, watching TV, watching movies. I have a job now, so there are a lot of reasons. So I am well aware, and I accept that. So it's my own fault that I don't read, a lot of books in a month, because I could read, I could get in, 10 books if I wanted to, if I read all day. And I get restless. As much as passionate as I am about reading, I just can't spend all day reading a book. I have to go eat, or I want to get out of the house, or I want to watch TV, or watch a booktube video, or something related to a video related to one of my shows or something. So I'm well aware it's my own fault. So that's why I don't get that disappointed in myself. Okay, so the last thing I decided I wanted to read, because I haven't read, I've read some of East of Eden, but I haven't got very far of it. And I've been wanting to reread Of Mice and Men. I read that, I think, in middle school. And at that time, I was it was like, it was okay. But now that I'm older, I want to read it more. I want to reread it so I can appreciate it more. And I do agree with people like Words of a Reader that Steinbeck has a way with words and describing setting. It's very, like his first description of Mice and Men. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. A few miles south of Soledad, the Sonales River drops in close to the hillside bank and runs deep and green. The water is warm, too, for it has slipped twinkling over the yellow sands in sunlight before reaching the narrow pool. On the side of the river, the golden foothill slopes curve up to a strong and rocky Gavilan Mountains, but on the valley side, the water is lined with trees. Willows fresh and green with every spring, carrying in their lower leaf junctures the debris of the winter's flooding, and sycamores with malted white recumbent limbs and branches that arch over the pool on the sandy bank. On the sandy bank under the trees, the leaves lie deep and so crisp that a lizard makes a great skittering if he runs along among them. Rabbits come out of the brush to sit on the sand in the evening, and the damp flats are covered with the sunlight tracks of coons, and with the spread paths of dogs from the ranches, and with the split wedge tracks of deer that come to drink in the dark. There's a path through the willows, and among the sycamores, a path beaten hard by boys coming down from the ranches to swim in deep pool, and beaten hard by tramps who come warily down from the highway in the evening jungle up near the water. In front of the low horizontal limb of a giant sycamore, there is an ash pile made by many fires. The limb is worn smooth by men who have sat on it. That is so beautiful, and he has a way with describing setting. So I want to read that. And I want to continue reading of East of Eden, and I want to eventually read Grapes of Wrath as well, because I saw the play version of Grapes of Wrath, and at the time, I think, I was too young, and it was late at night, so I was tired. It was bad timing, I think, at the time. And with the book, it's a little easier, because you can put it down and take a break. You know, the play, you're sitting there for, like, I want to say 2 hours. Well, depending on the length of the play. Sometimes it's not that long, sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it's more prone to be not that long, not as long as 2 hours, or 2 hours at the most. So yeah, that's what I'm currently reading. What are you guys currently reading? Why don't you let me know in the comments? And, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and click subscribe if you haven't already. Much love to my already subscribed people. I hope you are enjoying your reading. Love you guys, and I will talk to you later. Alright, bye.